You have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. It is Wednesday, the 11th day of January 2023. Clive Walsh here, encouraging you to take a break from the regular routine and runaround of life and listen for the next 5 minutes to this devotional thought, and it is our hope and prayer that God will minister to you and meet you exactly where needed. And our devotional thought today is entitled, Turning the Other Cheek. And the verses, Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 40, which reads, You have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. That's Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 40. Pastor Alistair Begg writes, These words of Jesus are familiar, but they are also very challenging, and we ought to be very careful not to strip them from their impact by immediately trying to qualify them in 1,000 different ways. Yet, we also need to be sure to understand what is not commanded here. These verses does not advocate some kind of pathetic passivity, although they're pressed in that way by some. So, how would we interpret what Jesus said? It's always important to compare Scripture with Scripture. The instruction given here is for interpersonal relationships. It's not given to determine the role of the state, whether in welfare or in the execution of justice. Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 7. The key is to distinguish between the temptation we face to enact personal vengeance and the duty we've been given to uphold both God's glory and the rule of law. Jesus doesn't want us to be unconcerned about issues of truth, righteousness, or justice, but he doesn't want us to be driven by a desire to protect our own rights or to pursue personal revenge. David understood this distinction when he called down curses on people in the Psalms, for example, Psalms 5 verse 10. He was not seeking to execute personal vengeance, rather, he was looking at God's glory and majesty and at the wholesale rebellion of the culture and saying to God, Please, for the glory and honor of your name, deal with these circumstances. Similarly, although Paul wrote that we should never avenge ourselves in Romans chapter 12, verse 19, he too recognized the separation between retaliation and matters of civil justice. In Philippi, he and Silas were accused of unlawful actions and dragged away to jail. Acts 16 records how, when the magistrate tried to release them quietly, Paul said to them, They have beaten us publicly, condemned men who are Roman citizens, and have thrown us into prison. And do they now throw us out secretly? No. Let them come themselves and take us out. Then the police reported these words to the magistrate, and they were afraid when they heard that they were Roman citizens. Acts chapter 16, verses 37 and 38. They were afraid because they knew what they had done was illegal. Yet, there was no sense of personal vengeance in what Paul did. Rather, he was upholding the rule of law. We will be helped as we keep in mind this distinction between personal retaliation and matters of civil justice. We need the humility to trust God for justice in our interpersonal relationships and the courage to promote righteousness and the glory of His name and the integrity of the rule of law. But the challenge still stands. Without ignoring justice, we are to seek to bless those who hurt us and to share with those who have taken from us. And the question is, what will that look like for you? To know that we do need to turn the other cheek, but we have a clear understanding of what that means. not ignoring justice or injustice, but rather seeking to bless those who hurt us and to share with those who have taken away from us. And may God give us wisdom and discernment today to do that as we live out our practical Christian lives for the world to see. Well, that's our devotional thought for today. Clive Walsh here, encouraging you to continue reading through the Bible in a year. And Genesis chapter 27 and 28 are the verses today, as well as Romans chapter 9, verses 16 through 33. And may the Lord richly bless you.